Let's think about the hardest B2B sale. Now, I hear a lot of them in the course. Nobody joins the course because they're selling something that's easy. But you got to imagine that one of the hardest, if not the top 10, is selling office equipment, copiers, devices, maintenance. And why? Because everyone wants to view it as a commodity. Everybody pushes you down to the price. Everybody's got something or do it some way. It's not new. It's been around for 40, 50 years. And guess what? Who's the last person most people want to talk to? Maybe the government, maybe the police, maybe a salesperson. Today we're going to be talking about that. How to sell the hardest of the hard. And I think you're going to enjoy this conversation because if you were, check the dude out on YouTube. Nice guy. A guy you'd like to have a beer with. And guess what? You might have had a beer with him if you were in Boston a few years ago or New York. He is a guy from the country that lived in New York City and grew up in kind of the hospitality space, but has that performance characteristic. Not in sports, but is a singer and an actor. And we talk about how those disciplines, singing, acting, bartending, hospitality, play so well into selling. Because to sell, you have to have a conversation. You have to be able to talk with people, listen to people, build a conversation, what people call a relationship. And how do you do that consistently? How do you do that if it's not natural? How do you become better at it? Because that's really how we build our business. If you get inbound or you have a great customer base, congratulations, people have a reason to talk with you. But a lot of us aren't in that situation. A lot of us don't have much brand recognition, never mind problem recognition. That's because when somebody has a problem, they're willing to talk about it. But if they have a problem and they're not aware of it, or they've kind of glossed over it, or they're ignoring it, or they're misinterpreting it, that's where the selling starts. That's where the beauty of it is. How do you build up that conversation and start helping people? Because when you can do that, there's no stopping you. Because you got to think, in most markets, 99% of the market is in latent pain. They're not coming to your website. They're not looking to solve the problem. They think they've got it covered, or they're ignoring it, or they're going to wait until it's critical, until it is active pain. 99% of your market is in latent pain. But that's where the gold is. You can fight to the death over that 1%, and you probably should. But you can tell what your chances are after a while. You get a sense of where they're leaning. But that 99%, that's blue ocean. Nobody's fishing there. Or people are fishing there with commercials. Let's talk about how to get into there. That blue ocean of opportunity. And isn't it time? Let's get into the interview. Make sure you're checking out the courses over b2brevenue.com. Big thank you to everybody who's liked, commented, and shared the content, told a friend about the show, checking out the other podcasts. If you could do me a big favor, even if you're not going to listen to them, could you subscribe to them? It would help the rankings, the Sales Leadership Show. Just subscribe to it. And if you happen to see one and have a few minutes, you could play it. Don't have to. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Eric, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, gives a little background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. So, I started out not in sales at all. I joined sales about a little over 4 years ago now. So I have a little bit of a different background than most people. I came from the restaurant industry, worked my way up through the restaurant industry, became a general manager, assistant general manager, opened my own restaurant, and became a kitchen manager at one point. So I've done everything there and got to the point where my wife and I wanted to start a family, and the restaurant industry isn't exactly conducive to that, considering I was working 6 days a week for 12, 14-hour days. So decided it was time to make a change. And a friend of mine worked for the company I work for and said, hey, you should do this. And I said, I'm way too honest for sales. I can't do that. And kind of had a stigmatism to it.
Yeah.
And I've realized very quickly that honesty is what helps me the most and wins me the most business. So
It's crazy that sales still has that long tail of
yeah.
dishonest, and it's I find it to be just the opposite.
Oh yeah.
If you're not 100+% honest, you don't even get a chance.
No, you don't even get a seat at the table.
Yeah. And you can't even mislead, you can't exaggerate, you gotta.
Nope. No. So I started about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago now, and have worked my way up within the company since then. So now I handle the major accounts for um, the Northeast in New Hampshire and Vermont. So
But the restaurant business is a great training ground, isn't it?
it very much was. A lot of people, when I started, they were like, "Oh, you came from the restaurant industry. That's interesting. How'd you get into sales?" And realistically, I mean, the restaurant industry, the biggest thing is communication. You need
Yes.
to be able to communicate with the guests, with the employees, and everything. And if you're not listening and you're not communicating with them, then realistically, you're not going to be a great manager for a restaurant, or you're not going to be a great leader there. So
Right.
it's one of those where we had to use those skills and turn it into this. So it was great.
Right. Because you're trying to solve a problem before it becomes a problem.
Right. Yep.
Because by the time they tell you it's a problem, you
Yeah.
just got to get that expression on their face, the way they look at the food, or the
Oh yeah.
waving of the hand.
Yep. Head's constantly on a swivel. So not only are you trying to make sure that everything's running smoothly, but you're also checking in and doing a visual check of everything around you. So
Plus, it has a lot of like the herding cats kind of day
yes,
to
it
it, right?
does.
A lot of unpredictable things, unreliable,
Yeah,
less than perfectly reliable people.
absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And people might make reservations, but they rarely show up on time. And,
Yep.
they got twice as many people or half as many people. And
Yeah. And they want to be seated right away, and
yeah.
half the party's there and the other half doesn't show up for another hour. And yeah,
And
but you roll with it.
what was that first year like?
So first year in sales I mean, for the first 6 months especially, I felt like I was kind of just trying to tread water and keep my head above water, because it was so different, and I mean, I didn't exactly know what to expect or what to think going into it. And I had my, like we talked about, this vision as to what it was, and quickly realized, I mean, I had great mentors and great people working around me that really kind of opened my eyes to it and helped me through it. And I came in as a blank slate, and I told our corporate trainer, look, whatever you say is what I'm going to try and do, because I don't have anything else. I haven't created any bad habits. I don't have any um, different experience with it. So I'm just going to try and use exactly what you said and move forward. And I had some success right out of the gate, just listening to what other people told me and how they had successes and stuff like that. So I've been able to, it's funny, once I completed my training, the next training session, he had me in there doing some best practices, just trying to help other people to, hey, you don't know what to expect, and just roll with it and go with it. So,
And what were some of the epiphanies that you had that first year?
so one of the things that I focus on, and I say this day in and day out, and now I have people that work on a team with me, and I'm their team leader and stuff like that. And one of the things I always said going into it was, if it's not growing, it's dead. And I constantly am trying to learn and better myself. And so I took a lot of that on myself, and outside of even the training and everything else, I was constantly trying to learn and better myself and find different things. So one of the things that stuck out was something I read that said, people love to buy, but hate to be sold.
Right.
And, it kind of rang true to me. And once I stopped and thought about it a little bit. I said, yeah, you're right. if I'm going to create these genuine relationships, and this is what I did in the restaurant industry myself, was creating regulars that would come in to see me, I want to create that same environment with my clients. And so it was kind of a change of thought. I don't have customers. I don't have, they're my clients. I work with them, and I help them through the process. I don't want to sell them something because I need to hit a number. I want to do what's right by them and help them grow. So.
But you're in a pretty competitive space.
Oh yeah. Yes. Very competitive. And it is what it is. That what we do is we're not the cheapest, and we're not going to be. And it's definitely a difficult situation, but building these relationships is what gets me a seat at the table, and then I can talk them through it and say, look, do you want to buy a Cadillac or a Fiat? It's up to you. and we go from there. And so.
And is that how you differentiate yourself? Is it on the quality, or is it the service? Is it the relationship, the whole package?
Yeah, it's kind of all of it. We are a manufacturer, so we do have that, but realistically, our business model is based on service.
Yeah.
And they all have direct access to me, all of my clients, so they can call me if anything goes wrong, and I can facilitate it. Now, I'm not going to be an order taker. I'm not going to be someone that just sits there and waits for my phone to ring for something to happen and whatnot. But if it becomes an issue and you're not getting the service that you want, or you're not getting the attention you like, call my cell phone. You have it. It doesn't matter what time of day, and I'll expedite things, and I can make things happen. So.
And I think a lot of sales reps get wrapped around the axle on cost, because
Yep.
that's what they hear, but that's not the real issue.
No, not at all. If you're doing it right, realistically, I'm playing my own game, and I'm playing by my own rules because I made up the game. And when it comes down to costs, if it's just about the number, well, I'm gonna go in and tell you, look, this is the number, and a lot of other people are going to be way cheaper. But what separates us and what just differentiates us is the service you're going to get and the relationship you're going to have with me as your account manager, and we're going to do everything. So it's kind of coaching them and opening their eyes to the fact that there's a lot more to it than just a commodity and a
right. Yeah, because the boss isn't going to remember what it costs. They're going to remember, why isn't it working?
Yep, exactly. Very much so.
And they're not going to, punish you because of a couple thousand more, but they will punish you if you don't get it done on time.
Yeah. And if it becomes an issue, rarely in any industry, you don't really hear about things until it's a problem, right?
Absolutely.
And then, so for a lot of us, no news is good news, but it's taking that extra step too. And as the account manager, me reaching out to them and just checking in periodically just to make sure everything's still running smoothly. It's just that little attention to detail that goes a long way. And you're right. When the boss can't print or can't copy or can't do what they need to do, then there's an issue.
That's the real cost.
Yep.
Now, what was it like? Because when people go from hospitality or retail to B2B, it goes from people coming to you going to see people.
Right. Yeah.
What was that?
It was something different, luckily, I've had my background. I have no problem communicating. So a lot of people I talk to are afraid of, making the dials and making the calls and stuff like that. I've been a actor and singer for many, many years. So talking to people and being in front of people never was a concern of mine. But it is. At first, you're not sure what to say. You're not sure how to communicate. And realistically, I think the most important part is you're having a conversation with someone, just like I'm having with you right now.
Exactly.
That's what it is. And when I ask a question or I stop and I listen, people open up and they just kind of tell you everything. So,
well, we've had like a lot of athletes and a few people from the performing arts, because the performing arts, you get immediate feedback from either your coach, your director, the audience.
Yeah.
your counterparts,
Hmm.
and there's practice, and it's a performance. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how good you did it yesterday.
Yep. It's
It's
all new
today that
today.
matters.
Yeah.
And that mindset seems to translate really well to selling.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can see that.
And and the people who haven't had that find it a little uncomfortable because they haven't taken feedback.
Hmm.
They look at it like a test. Either I know it, I don't know it, as
Yeah.
opposed to how well I do it.
Right.
And
Well, that's important too. I think that's the biggest fear a lot of people have is making a mistake. And
it's,
mistakes happen. That's what makes you human.
you know,
You know, um, if you didn't make mistakes, especially on calls with people. I mean, I've tripped over words. I've said things that I was like, what did I just say? And I'll openly admit that on the phone with them. I don't know. Sorry about that. I just stumbled over my words, and they realize, hey, he's trying his best here too. He's having a conversation with us, and he is a human being, and mistakes happen. So
and I think people don't like to be pushed, but they do like to converse.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
And they like to talk about themselves more than anyone else.
For sure.
Go figure.
Yeah,
And if you can build that, people call it a gift of gab. It's a gift of listening
that's
and
exactly what it
kind of
is.
pulling it out of the other person and teasing it out of them.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the biggest things was going through this was the let them speak. Stop what you're saying and don't immediately pick up the conversation. Pause and make it a little uncomfortable because you're trying to talk to them. You don't want to just have a one-sided conversation. So,
Yeah, because people are too often, what do I exactly say?
right.
It's okay. It's more like ask and how to have a pregnant pause that
Yeah.
causes a little discomfort that pushes them to say something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of the people you're probably contacting aren't in active pain.
Yep, exactly.
The active ones would call you.
Right.
So
Yep.
you're not going to find luck. You might have luck and find a problem, but most likely they're like even keeled to
Yeah.
happy. Who knows?
Yeah. And that's just it. I mean, some of the things that I've done and successes I've had have been from a conversation that started 3 years prior.
Yeah.
And, occasionally just checking in and talking to them. And then it comes to the point, hey, it's time for us to do something here. And, you've been consistently nice and respectful this entire time. So I'm going to give you the opportunity. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not just a quick sale. It's you gotta put the time in and you gotta build the relationship. It's just like anything else.
Because you're in a space that probably has contracts,
Oh yeah.
so that even if they hate them and love you, there's the timing's not right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And what has kept you in this space? Because it's a hard space.
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, starting out in sales in this organization, I built a lot of great relationships and I've had some great success with it. And um, with that comes the not just the relationships I've had with my clients, but the relationships I build within the organization. And the realistically, it boils down to the respect I get from even the higher ups and stuff like that. I'm treated with respect and I'm treated like someone that is an actual contributor to the company that um, there's value there. Now I've seen other people come and go, and I've seen other people have reached out to me and tried to take me away and promise me this and that and the next thing. And it's one of those where I get a lot of freedoms because I have built these relationships, and the loyalty that I have to the company it far exceeds um, what somebody else could offer me. It's really a family atmosphere, and which is crazy because we are now a major major corporation. And
Right. Yeah.
I've seen quite a bit of change happen, and it's one of those where just that individual touch is still nice, and we have local decision making. And if I need something, I can walk down the hall and talk to my president, and my manager sits in the office next to me. So it's pretty spectacular.
And so I'm sure you've, like you said, seen people come and go.
Yep.
Have you built a sense of when it's not a match?
Yeah. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it. I mean, you have to be self-motivated. You have to push yourself. And a lot of times you see people coming in that, if they have so much more freedom of outside sales where, you're going out in the field and stuff like that. And if they lose focus of, I'm doing a job right now, and they decide, it's time to skip out early, I'm going to take an extra long lunch, I'm going to hit the links on the golf course. And, it's one of those where you really need that self-motivation. And if you don't have the drive, it's not going to be right.
And how about that resilience, being
Oh,
able
yeah.
to,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people don't like being told no.
right.
Plain and simple. And it happens a lot. I mean, they say it's the rule of threes, is what we hear about all the time. That you'll win one, you'll lose one, and another one will push. And you just got to be willing to ride the wave and take advantage when you can, and continue the course, but that resilience is key. I mean, a lot of times people get discouraged because it takes time to build this.
It
It
does.
takes time to build your own book of business. It takes time to really succeed. So,
And where did you get that confidence, or that the grit, or you seem, very calm, even keel guy,
yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That's what I strive to be.
right? Was it the acting and the music, or?
I don't know. I mean, it's always been ingrained in me. My father, he definitely pushed me when I was younger, and made me realize the benefits of hard work. He didn't go to college, but he made something of himself, and he started working for an engineering firm and stuff like that. And the time frame was a little different back then. I mean, you didn't necessarily have to go to college to do all of these things, but he taught me with hard work that it pays off, and you can make something of it. And I have applied that with everything I do. So,
And he let you get away with a theater degree?
right. Yeah. Well, I don't know that he was too keen on it, but he knew that was kind of the direction I was going. He passed away the year before I went to college. So, so I don't know that he probably hadn't said to me yet, like, you really going to college for that? And, but yeah, I mean, as soon as I got out to New York, which is where I went to college, I thought about it, and knowing that my dad had passed away, and it was always a goal of his to open his own bar and restaurant. And I said, you know what, like, I want to do that for him. And so I worked as a bartender while going to college, and became a manager for a bar in New York, and just kind of worked my way through it. And then it was something like, I can do this. I can really put my foot down or dig my heels in and do it, And
was that in the city?
Yeah, in New York City.
So that alone is a pretty resilient based event.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I was there for quite some time, and after a little while, I was like, I gotta get out of the city. This is a lot. And being a small town boy coming to the big city, that was everything I wanted at the time. And then I realized very quickly that it's very fast paced. It's there's no quit to it. And once I made the decision to, I think it's time for me to leave the city, it still took me another 2 years to actually do it and get out, just because I was working hard and didn't want disappoint and didn't want to leave someone empty handed. So managing a bar and restaurant, I wanted to make sure that the torch was passed in the right way.
Well, it has, because I had a manager who used to hire a lot of hospitality people.
Mm-hmm.
If he met a bartender or a server that he liked, he would interview them and try and hire them.
Yeah.
Because it has, you're on your feet, you have to present yourself, you have to connect with another human being and sense when you're doing something right or wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to work with other people.
And multitask. I mean, that's one of the biggest ones, especially working in New York City, like people standing there leaning over the bar, like, tell me are you ready to order? Like, tell me what you want. I'm doing 3 other things, but I'm listening and I'm doing these other things. So if you want it, shout it out and I got you. But
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely one of those where, it taught me a lot. And not only that, but we all know being a bartender, you're a therapist too. So you have to listen.
You have to listen to people, and you don't do very well unless you connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You can't be over there reading a book while somebody's sitting there.
Nope.
And what are some of the other things that have really differentiated you as a salesperson?
Sure. I mean, like I said, honesty and integrity and just my customer base, my clients knowing exactly who I am. I mean, I think it was General Patton that said, I want my company to know me and I want to know them. So it's actually taking the time to allow them to know me as a human being too, and connect with them on that level. So I approach it a little different from most people. It's not about, it's not always about the end goal.
Right.
I want to obviously I have a job to do. I have a number I have to hit, but realistically, my goal is to do what's right by any other organization. That's how I'm able to sleep at the end of the day. And I come home and I teach the same thing to my children. And I say, Daddy, did you sell anything today? Nope. It's not an everyday thing, but
it's not. No.
What really helps is that I can have that conversation with them and explain, we don't do this every day. And there are successes, but or there are failures, but to every failure, there's another success. And one of the things I really like, and I preach to my team, is we don't lose. We either win or we learn.
Yeah.
And it's important.
And how long did it take before you felt at home?
It definitely was over a year. I always say the first year is the hardest. I tell all the new hires coming in and everything, we do a mentorship program that I become a mentor to them. And then I do the training, and I tell them very honestly, like, you're going to feel completely lost and not feel comfortable for the first year. And you might not ever get to the point where you're 100% comfortable with everything. So one of the things we did was we would have these quarterly reviews with our trainer and stuff. And they would always ask the question, what percentage do you think you're at of how well you know the industry and what your job is and what you're doing? And every time I was there, I'd be going around the room, people that are there for, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is, they're like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm like 110%. I know I'm at 100%. I got this. And every time, even after the first year that I'm there, they would ask, and I'd say, I'm probably 70%. And our corporate trainer, he asked me, he goes, what? Every time you say you're at 70%. And I say, well, things are changing so rapidly. Things are changing all the time. So yeah, I could be comfortable with something, but then guess what? It changes. And I have to relearn, and I have to find out what else is out there that we're now offering and now doing. And I said, not only that, but our comp plan changes all the time, and
the market changes, the economy changes, your competitors
with everything
change.
Going on with the pandemic and everything right now, I mean, it's impacted a lot of businesses and a lot of industries, and it's one of those where I'm never going to tell you that I know 100% that I'm comfortable doing this. But, but that's the important part of, that's why I always say, I'm always trying to learn and be better and do better myself.
And I think that's a key point, because when somebody says 100 or plus percent, you know that their mind isn't open.
Yep.
They're not hungry to learn. And if it goes wrong, who do they blame?
Right. Yeah.
That's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. It's
And
very
if,
important, the way you think.
yeah, and if it's
And
down, 30, 40%, they're not going to move until they learn something else.
right.
So they're kind of paralyzed
Yep.
in indecision and fear. So I
Yeah.
think your point about 70, 80% keeps your mind open, but comfortable enough that you're not going to get in your own way.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And I think too that, it's the power of positive thinking, keeping an open mind to it. I mean, so many times we can get wrapped up and sit here and say, I was late to work. I was late to this reservation. I was late to that. Well, why? What happened?
Right.
Um, or I got in a car accident and it's the other person's fault. And it's like, well, think about it. Like,
They were at that stoplight.
yeah,
They cut my way.
yeah, like could I take ownership of it? Could I, before I left, if I took the full 2 minutes to brush my teeth, guess what? That car wouldn't have been there,
Yeah.
And it's just one of those where, take some ownership on your own and realize that there's actions and decisions that you've made that have gotten you to that point. And you got to keep an open mind to it. It's not just, well, yeah, this is the reason why that happened and it's somebody else's fault. Take some ownership of it. It's the only way you're going to learn, and it's the only way you're going to grow.
Yeah, because I think part of mastery is finding out what you don't know.
Yeah.
And, because I interview, 10 reps a week.
Right.
Right. Plus I talk to a bunch.
Yeah.
And every week I'm finding out stuff I don't know, or isn't complete, or is wrong.
Yep.
And I look at that as good, because now I can learn more. And all of a sudden you get these epiphanies that, it's going to take other people years to find out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that there is no one right answer. It's like the performing arts. There's a million ways to do it.
Yeah. 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 And it all depends on, given the performing arts side of it, what you say to me is going to impact how I'm going to respond to you.
Exactly.
So you could say the same thing 3 different ways and it's going to garner a different reaction from me.
Right.
So,
because you've got a very calm, even keel style, but if somebody goes in big, gregarious, big, bubbly personality, doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. If they both
not
work.
at all. Yeah. 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 And I work with a lot of people that are completely different from me. I mean, I have people that just focus on the analytics side of things, and they're very successful. And they've been very successful doing this for quite some time because they can break down the analytics to it and show someone why or why not this is a good decision. And they've had great successes with it. And then there's me who builds relationships, and that's just my style. That's just what I've realized works for me. But you're right, what works for me might not work for somebody else.
Yeah. And when reps come to you, what's the most common thing you see either wrong or they're looking for help with?
I think it's them getting in their own way.
Oh.
To be completely honest, it's the second guessing or overdoing it. I mean, if you start thinking about it, there's a million different options we can do for different people. And when someone comes to you or you start this relationship and talking to a client and trying to figure out the next steps, you don't want to give them too many options, which then start conversation or questions, and you go further down, and then it's okay, well, these are the original, I gave you these 3 options, now we're at 7 options, now we're at 10 options because of different things you've said. And it's really letting the coworkers I have, talking to them, saying, look, just, you're the expert on this, right? You're the one that knows what is the right decision for that customer or that client. Give them that option. You're the one that This is what my recommendation is.
Yeah.
Give them the recommendation that you actually think is the best fit. And they might say, well, that doesn't fit into the budget. That's more than what we were. Okay. And I understand that, but listening to you and understanding your business and understanding what your needs are, this is my recommendation. And you win some and you lose some, and you will lose some, and it happens.
And are you in a leadership role now, or are you individual?
Yeah, so we do things a little different. I'm a team captain, so I have 3 other people that work alongside me on my team. So when they need support, they need help, they need someone to go with them or something, or just a different outlook on things, they're able to come to me, because our manager's running a team of 2.5 states, so he's pulled in many different directions. So yeah, I'm the team leader on that side of things.
And how do you like the leadership part versus the execution part?
For a long time, when I first started in sales, I said, the leadership side of it is what I've done my whole life. That's what I want to do. I want to get into the leadership side of it. And it's still a passion of mine. It's still a passion because I enjoy helping others. I enjoy passing on my knowledge to it. And I was part of like our Future Leaders program and stuff, which was absolutely amazing. And one of the first things they asked us was, what makes a leader? And, everyone kind of went in and gave a definition of a leader. And I was like, well, I'm going to take it a little bit differently. It's not what's the definition of a leader, but what defines a leader. And what defines the leader is the people that are working there. So if they don't have respect for you, the trust in you, the admiration and the compassion from you, you're not a leader at all.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I take things as a team leader. I'm there to help with whatever you need. And if it comes down to it, you want another outlook, a different eyes on things, I'm happy to help, and we can do that. So I do still enjoy the leadership side of things, but I think I'm enjoying where I'm at. I love my clients, and I don't want to lose them either, because I have great relationships.
Sure. Cool. Hey, appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me there. And yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity of being on this podcast. And if ever anything comes up, feel free to reach out. I know I do a lot of different things, so if you reach out, I might reach out via Vidyard or Vimeo or whatever it is, just to shoot you back a nice little virtual email and whatnot. So yeah, appreciate it.
This is one of the interviews I think you should check out on YouTube to get the full visual, because when you get a sense of somebody, because part of it was visual for me. He was very even-keeled, very but confident but relaxed, not confident and cocky or arrogant at all. Very just nice person that you could be very comfortable approaching. And if somebody like him approached you, you'd probably be open to it. Now, is this something that we can learn? Of course it is. A lot of people think that these things are inborn or innate. And part of it might be, certainly some kids are more social than others. Some are more quiet, loud, aggressive, introverted. But when we interact with other people, I think those skills, if we want to, can be learned. And if you don't know them or you're not good at them, learn from somebody else. Start the conversation, get the meeting, teaches you a step-by-step way of doing this without changing your personality. And changing your personality, I agree, is difficult. And that's what I didn't want to do when I first got into like sales coaching and training and consulting, because that's hard. That's why I don't like, when people like promote their style is the only way. And most of the people that you see who are either presenters or cold calling coaches, it's their style. It's not their words. You can write down their words, but it's their style, their confidence, their swagger, their gregariousness. And that is harder to implement. What we want to do is build off of our existing skills, but understand what the other person needs and wants. So if you can understand that, you can mold it and form it to your personality. Now, Eric today, he is not the gregarious. You would never, if you met him at a party, you go, that's not a sales guy. You would never think he's a sales guy. Doesn't look like a sales guy, doesn't act like a sales guy, doesn't have that sales rep thing. You would never put him in the rep zone. But is insanely effective. Came highly recommended by people he's been mentoring. And what you heard was that desire to grow. And that's what sales is like the most, deep profession I've ever seen. With like software engineering or marketing, it's deep and broad, but there's lots of confinement, lots of examples, lots of things that you can see that are good or bad. In sales, you've got people, and every client is different. Every company's a little different. And it's an infinite game. There's so many variables. You can never really totally control it or comprehend the whole thing. And the deeper you get into it, the more you understand that you need to learn. And that's the good part. That's not the bad part. The trap that people fall into is they become okay at it, maybe even good. They have some success, and they attribute it disproportionately to themselves versus the environment. I did an interesting experiment over the weekend where I dug up and looked up a lot of the people that I had worked with through my career and see where they landed. And what I was trying to do was find patterns. And in most cases, their success was fleeting. They were all good people. I didn't look up, anybody less than a B player. I mean, these were, A players, all, like the top sales reps at companies. And what you find out is they had fleeting success. They're not failures, but the trajectory was not linear. It wasn't just straight up and to the right. But neither was mine, so it's much more like a roller coaster. But what I learned from it is like, okay, industry is critical, the company is critical, the timing is critical, the manager and the opportunity that you have to work with is critical. Those things you have influence over, you can pick and choose, but how you maximize it is the most important thing. That timing and being ready when the opportunity comes. A lot of us, if you're born at the wrong time, you don't have control over that. And the technology, I think we have to embrace it. The people who are embracing it are leapfrogging over. Because the people, and the further back I went, the less they had embraced the technology. Almost none have embraced, things like LinkedIn and social and the internet as far as building an identity and a personal brand. And you can say, oh, it doesn't fit in my, and it may not. But when you become the person in that space, in that locale, in that problem set, it becomes a whole lot easier to become known, liked, and trusted. So, hey, I really enjoyed this interview. Great person. I love talking to great salespeople. If you know one or you are one and you want to be on the show, hit me up on LinkedIn. If I don't respond immediately, keep hitting me up because a lot of people hit me up on LinkedIn. Check out the courses. Don't let the time go by. You can always make money, but you can't make time. Make the best of your time. Learn and polish your selling skills and become better every day. And the way to do that is to see how other people are doing it, see what is good versus okay, and become better every day. We'll see you next time. Tell a friend about the show. Check out the other podcasts. Subscribe to them, even if you're not going to listen. It helps me out. Moves me up on the old chart. And if you see my content, give it a little like, a little comment, a little share. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. We'll see you next time.